This is the presentation for redundant array of independent disks, or RAID. All right, let's talk about RAID, which stands for Redundant Array of Independent Disks. It is a cool tech that basically combines a bunch of disk drivers into one to make your data safer and your system faster. There are different RAID levels, each with its own perks in terms of speed, reliability, and how much storage you get. Today, we are gonna dive into setting up four common RAID levels: RAID 0, RAID 1, RAID 3, and RAID 5. So get comfy and let's walk through how to get these RAID setups going. Alright, for RAID 0 installation, alright, let's talk about RAID 0. No? Also known as striping. This setup is all about boosting performance rather than redundancy. It works by spreading your data across multiple disks, which helps speed things up when you are accessing or saving files. It is like having multiple lanes on a highway to move data faster. But remember, with RAID 0, if one disk fails, you could lose all your data, so it's a bit of a trade off. That's the disadvantage of RAID 0. Now, for the installation procedure of RAID 0, here is a rundown of the steps to install RAID 0. Step 1 is to prepare the disks. Make sure you have at least two disks of the same size. Also, back up any data on them because the installation process will erase everything. Access RAID configuration for the second step. Restart your computer and get into the RAID configuration utility. Where you usually do this by pressing a specific key combination during startup. Now, the next step is to create a RAID 0 array. In the RAID configuration utility, look for the option to create a RAID array. Choose RAID 0 as the level and pick the disks you want to include into the array. Next, find the next step. Configure RAID settings. Of course, customize settings like the stripe size and cache settings according to your preferences. And for the final step is to complete the installation to save your configuration, exit the utility, and follow any additional or optional on-screen instructions to finish setting up RAID 0. And that's it. You are all set with your RAID 0 setup. Now, moving on to the next common RAID level, which is RAID 1. So RAID 1, also known as mirroring, is all about keeping your data safe. It works by creating an exact copy of your data across two or more disks. So if one disk fails, you've still got a backup on the other one. It is like having a twin for every piece of data, ensuring that you won't lose anything even if one disk decides to call it quits. Now, to install RAID 1, here's how to install RAID 1. First step is to make sure you have at least two disks of the same size and back up any data you have on them. And then restart your computer and access the RAID configuration utility during startup. And in the RAID configuration utility, select RAID 1 as the level and choose the disk you want to include in the array. Further to that, adjust any settings you need, like the cache settings on the stripe size. And finally, save your configuration, exit the utility, and follow any further instructions on the screen to finish setting up the RAID 1. Once you are done, you will have your RAID 1 set up, good to go, keeping your data safe and sound with that mirroring magic. Now, for the third common RAID level, we have the RAID 3. So RAID 3 is all about combining striping with dedicated parity to give you both performance and data redundancy. Here's how it works. Just like RAID 0, it spreads your data across multiple disks to speed things up, but it also adds a twist by using a dedicated disk to store parity information, which helps in recovering data if one of the disks fails. So with RAID 3, you get the best of both worlds actually. Faster performance and peace of mind knowing that your data is safe. Now, to proceed with the installation of RAID 3, now here's a breakdown of how to install RAID 3. Now, prepare your disks. You will need at least 3 disks of RAID 3, 3 rather. One of these disks will be dedicated to parity. Make sure to back up any existing data on these disks and then restart your computer and access the RAID configuration utility during startup. Next one is to select RAID 3 as the level for under the RAID configuration utility and choose the disk you want to include in the array. Fourth step is to adjust any settings you need, including designating the disk for parity. And finally, complete the installation. So save your configuration of RAID 3, of course, and if there are no, exit the utility and follow any further or optional instructions on the screen to complete the RAID 3 installation. And once you are finished, you will have your RAID 3 setup ready to go, providing both performance and data redundancy for your storage needs. Now, for the last RAID level, we have the RAID 5. So RAID 5 is all about balancing performance and redundancy using block level striping with distributed parity. So here's the gist. Like RAID 0, it stripes your data across multiple disks to speed things up, but it adds another layer of protection by distributing parity information across all the disks in the array. So this means that if one disk fails, the system can still reconstruct the lost data using the parity information stored on the other disks. So with RAID 5, you get a nice balance between performance and keeping your data safe. Now, here's how to install RAID 5. Number one is to prepare the disks. Make sure you have at least 3 disks available for RAID 5 and be sure to back up any existing data on them and restart your computer and access the RAID configuration utility during startup and then create RAID 5 array. So in the RAID configuration utility, select RAID 5 as the level and choose the disks you want to include in the array and adjust any system settings you need, such as the stripe size or cache settings. And yeah, complete the installation. You need to save your configuration, exit the utility, and follow any further instructions on the screen to complete the RAID 5 installation. Once you have completed these steps, RAID 5 array will be ready to go, providing a good balance between performance and data redundancy for your storage needs. Now we're done with the installation of these 4 common RAID levels. Now let us proceed with this. All right. Imagine you've got a text file on each RAID drive, and then you go ahead and destroy one of disk of a different technology. So here's what happens with each RAID level. So for RAID 0, if any disk fails without a backup, you are looking at data loss. So you will lose all your data. For RAID 1, since it is mirror data, even if one disk goes down, your file stays safe and sound. For RAID 3, thanks to dedicated parity, of course, your data can be reconstructed, keeping your files accessible. And finally, for RAID 5, even if one disk takes a nosedive, the distributed parity kicks in, saving the day and preserving your precious files. Now, finally, here is the last slide. So, all right, now let's talk about adding another disk to your existing RAID setup. Here's what happens with each RAID level. Now, RAID 0, you are getting more space. and a potential performance boost, but don't count on any extra backup for your data. So it's still, in RAID 0, there's a high risk of data loss. Now in RAID 1, this one is all about redundancy. The new disk becomes a copycat, automatically backing up your stuff. So with this, if you add another disk with RAID 1, the mirroring effect will just still going on with as long as we increment the disk. Then for RAID 3, you are increasing your storage space while still keeping your data safe with some fancy math for parity, and ultimately for RAID 5, adding a disk means more room for your files, and the system still makes sure your data stays safe by spreading the backup love across all disks. So, yeah, and that's a wrap. Whether you are looking to boost performance, enhance redundancy, or expand your storage capacity, understanding how each RAID level operates can help you make informed decisions for your data storage needs. So go ahead and choose the RAID setup that best fits your requirements and enjoy the peace of mind knowing that your data is in good hands. So yeah, everyone, happy networking. Goodbye.